Every once in a while, a piece of art just appears. It feels like it comes out of nowhere, and it completely changes everything. It's not always planned, it's not super polished, but it just lands at the exact right moment to start a revolution. Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible examples of this in music history. So, picture this. It's 1979. A band that nobody's ever heard of drops their debut single. And it's 9 minutes and 36 seconds long. I mean, for a first song, that is a wild, almost commercially suicidal runtime. But as it turns out, the length was just the beginning of what made this track so strange.
Yeah, see, this wasn't some grand, perfectly crafted studio masterpiece. Nope, it was a demo. The band was literally just messing around in a tiny studio. The engineer just happened to hit record, and what you hear is the raw, unfiltered magic of that one single spontaneous take.
And the result of that one take? Well, according to music history, it accidentally created the entire Goth subculture overnight. Which, that just raises a massive question, right? How on earth does a 9-minute jam session about a long-dead movie star become the actual blueprint for a global cultural movement?
Okay, so the song we're talking about is Bela Lugosi's Dead, and the band was Bauhaus. And to really get a grip on its accidental, almost magical power, we have to look at the song itself, but also the world that it was born into.
So what is this song even about? Well, the title kind of gives it away. It is a slow, atmospheric track about the passing of Bela Lugosi, the iconic actor from the 1931 movie Dracula. Right off the bat, a pretty weird subject for a rock song. But to see why it landed with such incredible force, we have to look at the bigger picture. To understand this song's impact, we need to do a little time travel back to the late 1970s. It was a time of huge cultural change, where one musical explosion was fizzling out, leaving this kind of void that was just desperate to be filled with something new. So punk rock had absolutely torn through the UK in 76, right? But by 78, that raw three-chord aggression, it was kind of burning out. Punk had smashed all the old rules, which was great, but it hadn't really offered anything to replace them. And this left a huge cultural vacuum for young people who were searching for something with, a bit more artistic depth. And you could feel this moody vibe everywhere, especially in the music. The post-punk movement was already digging into darker sounds. You had bands like Joy Division and Susie and the Banshees who were tapping into all the social anxiety of the time. The soil was just perfectly fertile for something that really embraced the shadows and a bit of melancholy. The stage was set.
So the timing was right, but what was it about the song itself? Let's actually break down the sound, because every single instrument here played a crucial part in creating this entirely new, totally haunting atmosphere.
It really all kicks off with that bass line. It's not groovy, it's not funky, it's deep, it's cavernous, and it is drenched in reverb. David J's bass immediately creates this feeling of dread, almost like the opening credits of a classic horror movie. And then the drums kick in. But Kevin Haskins isn't playing typical rock beats here. Instead, he lays down this hypnotic, tom-heavy rhythm. It honestly feels less like a pop song and more like some kind of primal, ritualistic march, just pulling you deeper and deeper into its world. And that innovation carries right over to the guitar. Daniel Ash isn't really playing riffs. He's creating textures. He uses feedback and echo and all these effects to make his guitar sound more like a spectral wail, this shimmering, really unsettling presence that just hangs in the background. And then, of course, you have Peter Murphy's vocals. His performance is just pure theater. He goes from this deep, mournful croon to this pained whisper, basically becoming the narrator of this whole macabre scene. He is the drama of the song. Even the lyrics, they don't really tell a linear story. They're more like these fragmented, super vivid images. This opening line alone, white on white, translucent black capes, it paints an entire picture of funeral elegance and gothic decay. It's basically a mood board in a sentence. So, okay, you've got this totally unique sound and these really evocative lyrics. How in the world does that translate into an entire subculture? Well, the thing is, the song didn't just sound different. It offered a complete package. It really all boiled down to these 5 key things. 1, it provided an aesthetic, this whole vibe of dark, romantic morbidity. 2, it had themes that connected directly to classic horror. 3, it had a totally new sound, a blueprint for atmospheric music. 4, the band themselves had a compelling image. They looked exactly like you'd imagine their music to look. And 5, the most crucial part, the timing was perfect. It just slid right into that post-punk void. It was basically an identity kit in a 9-minute song. And that identity found a home, fast. In clubs like the legendary Batcave in London, Bela Lugosi's Dead became the anthem. It was a rallying cry that brought people together, and around that shared sound, a real-world community started to form, with its own fashion, its own art, the whole shebang.
So now, here we are, over 40 years later, and the impact of that one spontaneous recording session is just undeniable. Its legacy is still echoing, both in music and in the incredible culture that it spawned.
The song itself has had this massive influence, right? It inspired entire genres from industrial to alt-rock, and it's famously popped up in movies like The Hunger. But at the same time, the goth subculture that it sparked has shown this remarkable ability to survive and thrive in communities all over the world, constantly evolving its own unique style. And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. Was this really a case of one song magically creating a subculture out of thin air? Or did Bauhaus just manage to perfectly capture a feeling that was already lingering in the shadows, giving a name and a soundtrack to a community that was just waiting to be born?